Wanted to just say hello again for everyone joining. We're so thrilled to have this session today entitled Young Bridge Builders, Solutions for a Divided World. We'd like to thank American Express Foundation and Laureate International Universities who actually helped putting this on. This is part of our YouthActionNet virtual learning series. So thanks again for joining. Today, we have some great panelists joining us. One of them is Gitanjali Babar, who's the founder of Katha in India. She's also a 2013 Laureate Global Fellow. The next panelist is Qasim Aslam, who's the founder of the History Project in Pakistan. He's also the 2014 Laureate Global Fellow, and we're excited to have him joining, talking about his project and his work in Pakistan. Our last panelist is Leonardo Parraga, who is founder of Bogotá in Colombia. He was one of our 2015 Laureate Global Fellows. He's joining to talk also about his work and some of the things he's doing in Colombia today. And lastly, our facilitator for this session is Ashok Regmi. He is our Director of Social Innovation here at the International Youth Foundation, and he'll be helping facilitate this awesome discussion that we're really glad that you guys are taking part of. So again, welcome, and we're glad that you guys could take part.
Great. Thank you, Whitney, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and for some of you, good afternoon, and for some of you, good evening and good night, probably in India. But on behalf of the International Youth Foundation, I really appreciate you all joining from around the world, and particularly for the panelists, for which I'm thankful for. And I would also like to again iterate our thanks to our partners, Laureate International Universities and the American Express Foundation for helping us with this learning series. We at the International Youth Foundation decided to do this webinar for a few reasons today. As we see on media and as we see in any community around the world that you live in, the current events that we are seeing is a great reminder for us that the work of building bridges between communities has never been more important. Breaking down the barriers, looking at social justice, bringing people together has a sense of urgency that we probably had not seen before. As we look at this divided world, what particularly I have seen is that a lot of work is around building systems. How do we change systems for people to think? I have not seen much of work around looking at how do we change the mindset of people, mindsets of people of how we view the other who may have different belief systems, who may have different religion, race, color, profession, no matter what it is. But people who do not look like us or who do not behave like us, we have a certain sense of tendency to judge them very quickly. And for us, as we're looking at a world where we want a just world, where people of different backgrounds and histories and cultures come together, we need to look at ensuring that the work that we do in building bridges is sustained. And that only happens when we can really change the mindsets of people. I'm really hopeful about it. I'm really hopeful because that conviction I have seen in the next generation that we work with. So today, even in a divided world, I'm really excited to do this webinar because we have pulled three phenomenal, unconventional experts. We use the word unconventional because in discussing this kind of topics, we generally tend to go to academicians or government officials or people who have about 60 years of experience. But decided to kind of talk with these unconventional experts who happen to be young people at the front lines of social change, working tirelessly for social justice in their own countries, to really delve deeper into what are some of the systemic challenges that exist in the way of bridging divides, what models and approaches that have worked, and some tips from young people who are tirelessly working to change their community, some tips to government, to other donors, to other implementers. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and once again, thank you to Qasim, Gitanjali, and Leo for joining from different parts of the world this morning. So let's just start our conversation, and I'll take all of you to India, in a city called New Delhi, where Gitanjali has been working tirelessly on a very difficult social issue of working with women who have been forced into prostitution, and working with their kids, and to really uplift their lives and to build identity of theirs. So my question to you, Gitanjali, is what are you trying to change in India, in Delhi? And talk to us a little bit about your own work around that particular issue.
If you ask me what are we trying to change, sorry, I think I'm mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So if you're asking me what I'm trying to change, then you actually mentioned it, that we are trying to change the mindsets of people. We're trying to actually create this world beautiful for everyone, be it a woman who is forced into sex work, or be it a woman who is born in a well-to-do family and who has never even got a chance to even visit a brothel, a place where these women are sold like commodities. So we're just trying to change that mindset. And if you ask me what Katkatha's vision is, its vision is to end forced sex work from the world. That's the dream Katkatha is holding and living.
So talk to us, Gitanjali, a little bit about some of the work you do through Katkatha.
So basically, Katkatha's whole idea is to enable these women and their children to choose a life of their dreams. These women have always been told that they are born for sex work, and if they'll not do this work in this lifetime, they will never get a better life after death. So even if they don't want to serve 50 men or 40 men a day, they're forced to do that, and they're mentally being prepared to do that. So Katkatha is basically trying to tell these women the reality of their lives, tell these women that they are meant to be loved, and they are mothers and they're sisters, and they're not just sex workers. And even the children, so they have a lot of dreams. When we started working with the children, they all were accepting the fact that they are not meant to do anything good in their life. And today they have got great fellowships they are fellows in India. And that's what we are here for, to just make them realize their true beauty and help them achieve their dreams.
Great. Thank you, Gitanjali. I think what jumps out to me in what you just said is the concept of love. And I sometimes feel that the development field has forgotten the power of love in development and building that empathy with each other. We'll get to more details of your work a little bit later, but let me now take you to Pakistan, where Qasim is working with young people in Pakistan to really build empathy. Qasim, talk to us a little bit about your work. You start of your work, you used a certain methodology to first look at different narratives, and then now what you're doing. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's been quite a long journey that I'll have to jog my memory a little bit just to start. But fundamentally, first time I met an Indian, I was 14. And the funny part was it was at a camp in the US, and one part of our day was to discuss history. For those of you who don't know, India and Pakistan have a shared past. It used to be one country that got divided in 1947. And so arguably we are supposed to have the same history, except that when we pulled our books out, it had a completely competing version. In the Indian books and in the Pakistani books, there were two completely different stories over there. So that's where we realized that history is essentially a perspective, and it's a telling of somebody's past. And so what we eventually did was we put the Indian version of the same incidents right next to the Pakistani versions of the same incident, and we published a book, and we started taking it to young kids, children as young as 11, who've been taught that history is a set of facts. And we just put this in front of them, and we were like, what do you think is right? And they've been taught all their lives that this what is written in their history textbooks is the gospel. It's the truth. And all of a sudden, their truth was being attacked by this perspective that's right next to it, but it's completely contrasting to it. And so that led them to start asking questions. Okay, which version is right? And so that doubt, that seed of inquisition, kind of is where the work of the history project started. And I think at the very foundation of what we're trying to do is get people to start asking questions and question this rampant narrative of intolerance that's permeating globally at this point in time.
Great. I think the statement you said that you need to build a capacity of people to ask questions, and that really allows them to also look at the others, ask questions about them, and opening up a space to ask questions about themselves. So, Qasim, what can you share with us just few activities that your work does in order to build that resiliency to bridge that divide that exists right now in Pakistan?
Sure. And so just to highlight one very important point, the most powerful way to get somebody to realize whatever you want them to realize, or something that's problematic, is not to tell them, is to get them to manifest that behavior themselves, or one of their own, somebody who they define as us, get them to actually manifest their behavior. So the program that we take to schools, for example, we work with kids as young as 11, and one activity that we run with them is a cricket match. And in a 30-student classroom, we divide about 27 students on one side and 3 of the students on the other, and we get them to compete in an actual cricket match. And then, as you can imagine, the 3-person minority team gets absolutely thrashed. And they're just wondering what the hell just happened to them. And that's when we tell them, this is how the minorities in your country feel. That's when we tell them that even though the rules of engagement remain the same in your society, this is how the minority voices get drowned out. And then there's a powerful silence in the classroom. We leave those students with that silence. We leave those students with those questions, the said and the unsaid ones. And that's when we tell them, okay, you need to question some of these things that are surrounding you, that are all around you. We just never recognize them. We just never realize that it's going on. It's all around us. It's here and it's now. And we just go on with our lives. And so this is just one example of the series of activities that we run with students to make them realize the problematic societal behaviors.
Great. Thank you, Qasim, for sharing that. Now, let me now take you to Colombia. And Leo, by the way, I love your hat and your hair. You are working in a very difficult situation where you're trying to build a reconciliation with former rebels, the FARC rebels, the ex-combatants of the FARC rebel movement. Talk to us a little bit about how you have gone about doing it, and also about the work that you do in creating a democratic culture by using arts.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Ashok. So basically what we're doing here back home is trying to create this reconciliation process that has been needed since 52 years ago. We started a civil war here in Colombia because we have different groups that were not listening to one another. We have different groups that have some ideals that might have some common ground, yet they were not aware about that because they never engaged in a conversation. And that led to violence, trying to put some of their ideas and political views into reality. So what happens now? We just had a peace referendum a couple of months ago in Colombia, where the majority of the country rejected this peace agreement. So for the young people living in this country, that was quite shocking, that after 52 years of war, we were facing a situation where we need to remain in this war, where we were not able to embrace a peace agreement as a society. So as young people, we decided that we needed to act, and that we needed to start to have some incidents in this process. So we start marching in the cities, we start camping in the main square in Bogota, and after 40 days, we got the attention from the government, we got the attention from the opposition groups, and they were able to craft a new peace agreement. That is the one we're currently implementing. Now the problem is that we still have a polarized society. Basically 50% of the people being in favor of the peace agreement, while 50% of the people don't quite agree with some of the things stated there. And the problem is that want it or not, we're going to have these ex-combatants from FARC reintegrating into society, and that's happening in 2 months from now. And we need to have people understand that they are also Colombians like them, and that they share so many common histories. So basically, the process we're implementing is about sending letters between people from civil society who have never met an FARC member and ex-combatants from FARC who are actually answering these letters and telling them a little bit about their dreams, their hope, what's their story, and also how they want to achieve this peace in society. So how they're going to do a common process with all the different members of society. So the basic process is bringing two isolated groups together so they can talk with one another and understand each other on a more relevant basis, let's say. Regarding the process of democratizing the arts in Bogota and generated social inclusion through it, we're doing it through the Bogota Foundation. Basically, our mission is to change the mindsets from people living in the cities. So what happens is, like, basically you have different groups here in society. You have the less privileged people and the people who have a high income, and they usually don't interact with one another. They have strong prejudice about the other group, and in that sense, they mostly remain isolated. So using the arts as an excuse for people to get together and to actually start to transform the city, joining efforts, we have seen how people can start to break these stereotypes and start to change their perceptions about other groups. So by creating murals together that expresses the identity, the feelings, the dreams of a community, we have seen how other people notice that they also share these common dreams, they also share a part of this background, and that they have more commonalities than differences. In a sense, that's also what's happening with letters for the reconciliation, that people is figuring out that they have more commonalities than differences, and just by listening to one another, they can realize that. So it's a process of getting to know one another and creating spaces for it.
Great, thank you, Leo. You know, a few things that kind of resonated with me, which is you know, the challenge that I've seen in this kind of work is that you all have used a youthful culture to build that resiliency. You know, Qasim, you talked about sports. You did the cricket match. And for a donor or a development organization, one might say you're just organizing a sports, but it's actually more fundamental than that. You're trying to build a sense of consciousness and bring people of different backgrounds come together. Leo, you talked about arts. One might say, oh, you're just building murals in communities, but it is so more profound that if you can bring people of different belief systems or cultures and contexts around a certain task, it can really help build that sense of community and help kind of understand the commonalities that we have as humans. So I'm going to go back to Qasim for a second. Qasim, you know, you talk to us a little bit about some of the approaches that have worked in your case around building this sense of empathy and justice. Talk to us a little bit about that, some of the tactical approaches.
Sure. So, one of the things that we're absolutely certain about is that we're not going in. We're not going in to tell people anything. We're not going in to tell them what is right and what is wrong. We're not going in to give them answers. one of the bigger challenges that history pretty much has seen over the last century, or like a lot longer than that, is this battle over ownership of the truth. Essentially, if you don't buy into my truth, then you're wrong, and then I'm going to kill you for it. History has seen this happen time and again. So at the very core of what we're trying to do, one of the main teachings that we give to our trainers who go into schools and work with these children is that do away with this Messiah syndrome. You're not going in there with answers. You're only going in there to build the capacity of these young children who are going to be our future generations to ask questions and to research and to draw their own independent conclusions. And this is fundamentally what we're trying to inculcate in them. Answers become outdated over time. Questions, the ability to question, the ability to synthesize information, look for new ones, and then being able to be wrong. I think these are the abilities, or these are the qualities that will stand the test of time.
Great. Thank you, Carson. We are not going to tell people the answer. We're going to build a capacity to ask questions. And I think that's something so important for us to think about when we are trying to bridge the social divides that exist. Gitanjali, let me ask you the question about the challenges you have faced, but more particularly if you were to give 2 or 3 tips to governments, to donors, to other organizations who are interested in bridging this divide in communities, what would that be? I mean, the governments are interested in bridging the divide. They want a peaceful society. The donors want it. They want their investment to be used in the most appropriate way and have the right outcomes. The other large organizations who are working in this field do want to have the right outcomes. But from your perspective, as you have seen, working in the largest red light district in India, working with women in brothels and their kids, from your view, what is not working? What are some of the tips you want to give to these stakeholders?
The one thing which is not working, Ashok, is that we want to control the change. We want to control the output. Be it the government, be it donors. We just want to know what the outcome will be in the next 5 years. And when you're working in such an area, when you're working with humans, you cannot control that. You have to go with the flow. And from past 5 years, this is our biggest struggle, that anytime, so I agree to you that donors want to work, the government wants to work, but I feel that they're so far from the ground realities that they just feel that change is possible in a year or in 2 years, and whenever they ask me questions like, what are your plans for the next 5 years? I just wonder, and I feel that in this road, nobody knows what will happen the next day. Nobody knows how things will just turn out. This is the most risky road in India. And you're asking me for the next 5 years. And that's the biggest challenge, to really tell these people that please trust, and even to the government, just have patience and trust, and you're dealing with humans, you're not dealing with machines. You cannot control the outputs. That's the biggest struggle. I'm not questioning their intention, but yes, I have problem with strategizing every single thing, and everything is not possible. I mean, strategies are not possible for such changes. So yeah, I just have this one suggestion to those people, that please, like your life, let this change also come with the flow, and come when it has to come, and just be there. That's the most important thing. We just have to be there. Yeah.
Could you talk, just share an example in your work? How did you let the outcome or output be to go with the flow? What did it look like? Did you work with the children in the brothels to design the program, or help us understand one instance where you had to go with the flow?
So actually, Katkatha started with the flow only. I never had any plan to work on that road. I never even got a chance to visit that road. a girl in India is not allowed to even talk about that road. And it all started with that. One lady, when I got a chance to go to the brothel through a government project, one lady came to me and she just asked me, can you teach me? And that's how it all started. And then I started teaching her. Then she came to me and she said that I will come and study later, but can you teach my children? And that's how the children got enrolled in Katkatha. And eventually the women said that I want to go out of this road. Can you create something, some alternative for me through which I can just go out and earn my livelihood? And that's how our alternative livelihood program started. So we never went with that, okay, in the first year I'm going to do this, second year this, third year this. No, nothing like that happened. It's just happening what they are. It's all on their suggestions. Whatever they're suggesting us, we're just trying to create a program around it. That's it. That's all we are doing, and that's how we are going with the flow. It has a lot of challenges. It's not easy to really tell your donors that you're going with the flow, but it's fun.
That's pretty profound what you said, telling the donors of the government that go with the flow, but it is so profound again, because the statement you use, don't control the outcomes. The people you are serving or the people you're trying to bring together, let them decide what the outcome or output could be, because they know the best. And it's very much resonates with what Qasim said. It's all about building their capacity to ask questions at the end of the day. And we are so mired in this sector that we have a pretty cooked up solution, and then we try to think that let's have the community take it on. So let me go to Colombia, Leo. In your approach in building reconciliation with the ex-combatants of FARC, you have relied on young people from the cities mostly. Tell us about that, and why did you, when you think about reconciliation in a community, why did you land up with young people?
Sure. I believe young people are all about being curious, finding new ways in which the world is working, and trying to figure out why we have the system that we currently have. And that's all about asking questions. That's all about figuring things out by themselves. They don't have, let's say, an already written agenda of what they are supposed to do, but they are constantly writing their whole history. So in that sense, I believe that young people is really willing to embrace these new opportunities. And specifically related with the conflict here in Colombia, after 52 years of war, they have never met most of these ex-combatants that were causing this internal war, and they have not talked to them and hear their version of the story, what they were doing. They just get secondhand information through the media or other channels, and it might be that this information is not entirely accurate. It's just a side of the story. So in that sense, a lot of young people want to know what's the other side of the story, and then they can come up with their own conclusions. They can say, yes, the conflict started because of this, but it's not because they are just buying some information that someone else is giving them, but they are actually being critical and coming up with their own perception of the world. So young people, and especially young people living in the cities, since they have not had such a strong link with the conflict, they have seen it through the news, through newspapers. They also want to have this closer approach, and giving them the chance to directly interact with ex-combatants, go to the encampments where they are living and deliver them some letters that people from the cities are writing. That was a really exciting activity for them, and that was also a way to learn more about what has happened in the country in the last couple of decades, and what's the perspective of a new country, a country in peace and where people work together with one another.
Great, great. Thank you, Leo. Before I open up for Q&A, I wanted to ask a last question, and please be very succinct. I'm going to ask all three of you, what if we, this webinar is about building bridges. What are one thing that all of us who work in this have to be very careful about and have to think about thoroughly if we need to sustain the change in our mindsets? Because a lot of times you would have protests, you have all these things, systems change, but the challenge is the mind shifts haven't gone through that transition. So if we as actors in this field want that to happen, what would be one thing that we all should be very careful and thoughtful about? Anybody, Gitanjali or Leo?
Sure. For me, it's basically starting from the ground up. And that means really listening to the communities, listening to the work, to the group you want to work with, and start co-creating with them. If you really take into account their desires, their dreams, their needs, and you're not imposing something, but you're actually giving the chance to bring forward the ideas that they have, that can be really powerful to build some solid and sustainable public policies or programs. Otherwise, if you're not careful about really involving the communities and you use them in a tokenistic fashion, then what you will find out is that the programs are going to fail after a couple of months, a couple of years, and the community is not really going to feel empowered about that. They're not going to own the process, but it's going to be gone after the funds are no longer there. So it's more about creating the capacity and creating the community who can move this project forward, instead of just thinking that external resources and external advice are the ones solving this problem.
Great. Thank you. Qasim?
Sure. This is something that surprises people when I say this, but when I think of sustainability, especially in terms of impact, even in terms of impact, I always think of business. If you can come up with something that people are willing to pay for, and that might sound really challenging in a lot of cases, because a lot of the work that we're doing is not necessarily mainstream. But I do believe that if you convince people that this change is going to make their lives better to the extent that you convince those people to pay for it, then you have the potential to actually really make that part of the social fabric. And then that's been at the very core of what the History Project has been doing. And that's what's allowed us to scale to 4 cities inside 28 months.
Great, thank you. And Gitanjali, again, what if people who are working in bridging the social divide, changing the mindset, what is one thing that we all should be very thoughtful and careful about to sustain it for a longer term?
Ashok, my mentor told me this thing 4 years back, and he said, in Hindi, I'll just say, "Pyar karo, baki sab khud ho jayega." That means you just love, and everything will be taken care of. And that's what I think it's our mantra of success has been from past 5 years, that just love, be it a policeman who is even beating the women, just love that man, be it a government official, it's their reality. And I think just through love, you can just change everything. And that's what I've been able to see on this road from past 5 years. And I know that this is the most sustainable strategy, the most sustainable tool for the whole world. And yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. And then I'm going to pass it on to Whitney, and we're going to come back to questions from our audience.
Thanks so much, Ashok. Just a second here. I wanted to make sure that we were able to thank our also really great sponsors as well. And so I wanted to make sure that we gave another shout out to Laureate International Universities and the American Express Foundation for their continued support for our virtual learning series. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and bring on fabulous conversations like today. Before you guys go, I mean, we want to have this Q&A, but remember, mark your calendars. We have an upcoming Twitter chat that we'll be hosting along with Leader Stories on Wednesday, June 28th at 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And the way that you join this chat is simply by adding us on Twitter at YouthActionNet and using the hashtag AmexLeads, and that way we can track all of the posts or comments, and you'll be able to comment right along with our great panelists about this very same topic. And remember to keep in touch with us. We'd love to let you know of all the great things that our fellows continue to do throughout the world. So make sure to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Now, Ashok, I'm going to pass it back to you for the question and answer session.
Great. Thank you, Whitney. Now, questions have started pouring in from all our participants. First question, somebody asks, the work you are doing can make people really angry when you are bringing people of different belief systems come together. How do you ensure that your passion for change is not only with anger and violence, but that you and others respond in very constructive solution making? Anybody wants to answer that question? And anyone? I think it is related to the question that when you look at the world today, there's a lot of in sometimes building communities. There's a lot of anger from both sides, no matter what side it is. But from both sides, there's anger and frustration. How do we ensure that our solution in bridging this divide is putting what Gitanjali said is through the lens of the revolution of love? How do we do that?
A quick comment on that would be that it may not always be possible, because whenever you change something, somebody is going to lose something, and that loss might just be their existing status quo, and so the anger is in some ways inevitable, and I think that's when the responsibility of the person trying to change things is even more so, that you have to exercise even more empathy. You have to understand what is this person losing over there. For you, it might just be absolutely obvious, oh, this is how the world should be. And why can't they see it? Why is Donald Trump behaving the way he is? And so on and so forth. So that's when you, A, exercise empathy, B, understand what are their losses, and C, at some level, be absolutely sure of why you're doing what you're doing. And then, in a very empathetic fashion, try and communicate that to people in the way that Gitanjali spoke about.
Great, thank you. Anybody wants to add anything on that front? How do we ensure that the anger is not there when you're trying to build bridges?
Just like Qasim mentioned, that anger is going to be there, but you just have to make sure that it's not affecting you internally. And it's very, very difficult, because if you respond to the anger with the same anger, then just forget about the change. Then both an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. That's the quote which comes here. So I would just say that anger will come, like Qasim said, but you have to be really in control of yourself, which is very, very, very difficult. I'm struggling with that personally. But that's thing which we all have to learn. And it happens in our family also. When I shared that I want to work in this road, none of my family members responded positively. It took 3 years to actually make them understand that this is important. And similar things happens everywhere. So if you feel that the whole world is a family and you just have to explain it to them like that, I think change is inevitable then.
Great, thank you, Gitanjali. Leo, do you want to add something there?
Sure. Adding to what Gitanjali was saying, I believe that you have opposite feelings always going on, but it's about knowing the root of these feelings, like why people feel that they have this hatred or anger against another group. And most of the times we find out that it's about not really knowing this other group. When they get the chance to start asking this question, to start saying their complaints, what makes them feel the way they feel, their perspectives start to change as they engage in a conversation, as they are able to ask some question, to listen to the other person. And it might take some time. It might not be a process that happens instantaneously, but then you need to be able to build up and have little steps to reach that point where people, let's say, leave their anger behind and start to embrace some new feelings.
Great. Thank you, Leo. And I'm going to ask a few additional questions because there are a lot of questions in the chat box here. Somebody's asking, what challenges you have had being taken seriously in leading your work? And how did you overcome those challenges? I mean, at the end of the day, when I said earlier, unconventional experts, we're living in a world where people with 60 years of experience, academicians, you have a PhD on the side, you're immediately taken as an expert. A young woman in India working with in a very dire situation to uplift the community, first assumption is you're not taken seriously. What have been the challenges that you have faced? Just in short, if you could just share some key challenges.
Ashok, the biggest challenge is my own self. Trust me. That's actually the biggest challenge for me, my internal imbalance, emotionally imbalances, which I go through regularly. But yes, a lot of times when you go to all these government meetings, and I first went to the police station, they said, who are you to tell me about the laws and all? But I really don't care about it. I just tell them that you must be expert in your work, but I'm expert in my work. I have spent 5 years in those brothels where you just go for a raid. So you better don't tell me about what works there. I respect you, but you have to respect me also, because I am one of those very few girls who are actually living in that area, and I know much better than you. I think just that trust, the confidence, the inner trust in yourself, in your work, is I mean, that's what make me stand in my city, at least. I know people respect me for that this is the girl who is not scared of anything, though I'm actually scared of darkness also. I'm scared of a lot of things in my life. But the way I put myself in front of them, I'm like the girl who is taking this dream to change this whole world. I think that is really important. And all these things they just come and go. What stays with you is your inner imbalances, which now I'm facing, and I'm going out for a month, a break on hills in solitude. So that is the biggest challenge which I feel you face in this journey when you're working in an area which is all about pain, and which is all about violence, which is all about sadness. And it just deposits in you, and you really have to overcome that. So I think that is the biggest challenge.
Thank you, Gitanjali, for sharing that. This inner trust in yourself when you're working in such difficult situations and working on such difficult causes, it can really take a toll on it yourself. And that ability to keep on going is something we question ourselves, right? So, Qasim, what would you say is your biggest challenge of being taken seriously in leading your work?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of things that Gitanjali just spoke about. So I think the biggest challenge is yes, definitely from within. It's the turmoil of actually taking a path which is less trodden, not taking up a conventional route, and the entire society coming down on you. Oh, what are you doing with your life? It does get to you after from time to time. But coming back to the question of how do you get people to take you seriously? I think for me the answer that how I frame that question to myself is that what am I trying to prove over here? Am I trying to prove myself as an expert in what I'm doing over here, or is my eye on the work that I'm doing? Do I trust that this work, this experience that I'm bringing to young children, is it going to change their minds? Is it going to potentially provide them the opportunity to become independent thinkers and question some of the things which are wrong in our society and hopefully make decisions differently? It's that it's a vision. If you focus on that, if you imagine that, and if you manage to get the people who are questioning your expertise to share that imagination, share that vision, in some cases that does solve that problem of yours.
Great. Thank you, Kasim. And Leo, what?
Sure, I was hearing Kasim and I completely resonate with what he was saying. I believe that the part of having a vision and being sure why are you doing what you're doing, what's the purpose of your social work, in my case is reducing inequalities and generated social inclusion. That's what drives me and keeps me going. Like the challenges I face is that basically we're in a world with an adultocracy. So basically adults are the ones making the decisions, are the ones in positions in power. And basically they are the ones who know how to do it. And in that sense, young people is usually left behind from this conversation and from decision-making processes. So that's one thing we need to face. And another thing, for example, is like governments believe that they have all the answers, that they know better how to execute programs. But when they see that an investment of $10 million didn't have any $1,000 was more cost effective to generate community cohesion and collaboration between people, then they start to wonder. And in a way, like it is sometimes for people, it doesn't seem that art can play a big role in development and in creating sustainability. But when you're able to show that through different case studies, through different metrics, then people actually start to take you into account. And it's not that you're automatically getting this role, but it's more like a process. Like people start to see the work that you're doing, and more than your words or what you say is the actions and how they having an impact. So it might take some time to get there, but if you're able to wait enough, then people can start to take you seriously into account.
Great. Thank you. We have about 7 minutes left, and I'm going to give a chance actually for one of you guys, if somebody's interested, to ask a question to the two others. Is there any one question that you want to ask as a young person in a different parts of the world who are tirelessly working to change the mindsets? What is one question you want to ask to the two others who are here?
I would like to ask Gitanjali how she can advise a policymaker to introduce love and empathy when they're developing new programs.
Leo, trust me, the policymakers have not started listening to me yet. It's just been 5 years. But yes, the people, they sometimes call me whenever they have, so like from the past 5 years, they know that this girl is all about go with the flow and she's all about love. So now finally they've started recognizing that she's there and she's making some change. So I have no one solution for it, but I just feel that my staying here is changing something in the mindset, in government, in policymakers. And now when I saw their report recently, they gave that report to me and asked me whether this research is correct and is it up to the mark. So, so I don't have one solution, but I just feel that, like you said, that if you are working with your vision, people will recognize and slowly they will start respecting the way you're working.
Great. If there's no other questions from the panelists, I think it's time for us to wrap up. But I just want to share a few things. One, first of all, my heartfelt thanks to all three of you, coming from different cultures, right? Working with ex-combatants in Colombia, working with women in sex industry who are going through such a hard time with their kids, and how do we build their lives, and working in Pakistan to really build a different culture of being able to ask questions. You know, those are very difficult goals. but yet, as you said, we don't give up, right? The keep at it, and I really appreciate the work that you do, and we are humbled at the International Youth Foundation for being able to be part of your journeys. But a few things what resonated with me in this conversation was, when we look at IYF, when we're thinking about building bridges in societies, we've started to think about that every individual, no matter what sides they are in, they have to go through a continuum, a fear of the others. We start by, as humanity, when somebody's different, we immediately go into the fear of others. Then we have to go through tolerating others, then sympathizing with others, and then empathizing with others. For people to go through this continuum, it takes a long time. And it requires patience. And I think Gitanjali said earlier, it requires patience, it requires a long time, but that everybody has to go through stages. And for that to happen, there are two strategies which I heard from you guys. One was that we need to expose people to the world of others. We need to expose them. In Leo's case, you're exposing the city students and young people to the lives of the FARC ex-combatants. In Gitanjali, you're exposing university students who you recruit as volunteers to go into the brothels and work with the prostitutes and the kids to uplift their lives. In your case, Qasim, you're bringing other young people to work with the kids in Pakistani schools to do that. So you need an exposure element of people to the lives of the others. And the other side of the equation is you need to empower and build the agency of the others itself. How do we empower them? So when these two meet, of building the agency of people who are the other, and then exposing the people to the lives of others, when they meet, that's where the mind shift, the change happens. And so I really admire the work you do. I really thank everybody who attended from all around the world for their participation. And once again, I want to thank the Lloyd International University and American Express Foundation for really helping us highlight this conversation more. So thank you once again, and for everyone to join, and my heartfelt thanks to the panelists, and keep on doing what you're doing. And I love the concept of bringing love and empathy back in development. So thank you very much for your time.